Whoa. Whoa. Wrong show intro there. But this is me. What's up, guys? Rob back in your life for another Monday right here on the One True Sport YouTube channel over on RVD Twitter account and the One True Sport X account, I should say. I am Rob. What's going on, guys? Happy Monday, February 10th. If you were curious what directions they were going to for their world title matches at WrestleMania, you got a bunch of clarity on tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw. Wherever you were in Jay Uso discourse, you have another log on the fire. We have an official opponent for Jay Uso. One half of the men's world title picture in WWE is all set. We'll talk about the segment and how it was built. We'll talk about Jay's decision. Was it the right decision for the character? Is it the right decision for the company? We're going to break all of that down. The picture of the chamber has become much, much more clear. Other spots have been added. Also, the women's division has a little bit of progress. There's an MVP in the women's division that's emerging right now on Raw. What is her role going to be at WrestleMania? Plus, we'll get into some of the day generically, tons of AEW news with the releases within the company. We have some John Cena merch that we have to talk about. And then we'll also break down some of these names that were trademarked today by WWE. As I mentioned, I am Rob with Brass Ring Media. And you see that little logo down there? It has my name. It's also got my handle, Rob's MB. Check me out on X, on Blue Sky mostly. Tweet a little bit about wrestling and other stuff. Didn't really have Super Bowl takes last night, but you guys certainly do. Look at that. Oh, and by the way, this is also going to serve as a quasi watch along to Luka's debut with the Lakers. I got that on the screen right there. I believe he just scored, or someone else at the Lakers. I don't know. What did you guys think of this edition of Monday Night Raw? In addition to the qualifying matches and the progress that was made in the title scene, if you ask me, the significance of tonight's show really was the in-ring wrestling. There were 4 matches on this card, and our main event wasn't that bad, but that main event was the worst of the 4 matches by far. This was not a blowaway match by a blowaway night by any means. We're not gonna look back at this years from now and look at this all-time great Raw on February 10th, 2025. But I think this was a Raw that we can look back on and look at just how good the wrestling is. And it kind of offers the greater question as we've seen leadership for Raw actually go down week after week as they've gone on Netflix. I would say the quality of the show has gone up. So those 2 things seem to be at this point. I'm glad to see Byron, E, and the bot, in the chat. We will get to your chat. Go ahead, get in on the chat. Let me know what you thought of Raw tonight. Let me know what you think about the direction headed into WrestleMania and Elimination Chamber. I think you can say with confidence that 2 pay-per-views were built tonight. Let's get your early thoughts on Raw up on the chat, and then we'll start breaking down the show segment by segment. He says, Jay trying to go for the three-peat, losing to Gunther at Mania, huh? Jay seemed like he was forced, didn't seem happy, even though he got his ass kicked. I don't know what show you were watching, E. I really don't, because that was not how that opening segment played out. The women, also for me, the women tag went on too long. It should just be Raquel in the ring with the extreme expose gimmick. But it was a good match. I don't think it was a bit long. I think it's a pattern of something that they're trying to build on Raw. I think that was very intentional. Let's see, Byron gets in here. Byron's getting some cool stuff. No, I don't need to print Byron's comment. The boss gets in there. I tell you with the condition doctor, almost this year it's affecting your performance. Comment on the other one. 0 out of 5 only because Logan won. It's not talking about Logan is good. Yeah, Logan did win in the main event. Logan Paul defeating Rey Mysterio and clearing up even further the men's elimination chamber picture, and we'll get to all of that. We'll get to that match. Byron did rate Raw though a 9. And that's a pretty good rating. This is the proverbial B show, and I mean that in a compliment. Not the way that SmackDown is the B show right now. I mean, this was a solid B in terms of a rating. This was a really good show with really good wrestling. The promos were okay, not a ton that blew you away, and a really hot opening segment. Right now, Raw on Netflix is a very tight, concise show, and you have some clear directions that they're building to on these upcoming papers. Now, whether or not you're okay with the directions that they're going, that's a different discussion because I think those are two different things. I think there's a lot of questions, and you can ask a lot of questions about the build thus far in terms of not the build itself, but the card that they are building for WrestleMania. I think there's some questions that people have, some good faith questions and some bad faith questions about this card. In terms of how a lot of this card is being built, specifically from the Raw side, I would say the company is doing a very good job. Part of it is for the first time, it feels like in a really long time, they're kind of distraction free around this time of year. They have one pay per view to build for, which was 1 month in between. And there's just not a ton of loose ends right now to tie up. There hasn't been a lot of people coming in that are outside of Cena and Charlotte. They're not imposing upon us that we need to get out of the way, that we need to find a spot in. So much of the regular roster is the stars right now, and you're seeing that with the way these Royal Rumble and Elimination Chambers are stacking out with really stacked rosters. They're not relying on so much from the outside. So you're already starting a WrestleMania build through the Elimination Chamber build, and it's a lot more coherent. And you can just announce stuff and get stuff out of the way and start building WrestleMania matches, one of which they announced tonight. You build that in the middle of February, you're not going to have this card and these matches play out to the middle of April. That can be good and that can be bad. They could end up burning their audience out on some of these feuds. Jay and Gunther seems like it could happen next week, and it might be as hot as it's ever going to get. You have a long time to build for that. Can they do it? Let's see. We have a long, long time to go till WrestleMania. Right now, though, in terms of how they're building it, I think they're building it very well. What they're building, mm, that's a little bit of a different story. If you have any stories to tell, go ahead and get them in on the chat. And if you feel like this show has any value to you, go ahead and send a super chat. The chat will stay up there forever. You can, you can guide the discussion on the show, use the discourse, do whatever. See, I just unless you're, I mean, it's Triple H involved, but unless this is WrestleMania 19, I just don't see any way that you actually would book this match and not have Jey Uso winning it. That's just a really bad decision, I think. Then you start doing the thing where that you did WrestleMania 19, where you start really proving the heel point in that kind of way. And I don't think you can do that. Different connotations because obviously the WrestleMania 19 match has so many other connotations to it, but I would recommend against it. Let me go ahead and share this show out just a little bit, and then let's break down the segments as we saw them. Looks like on our NBA watch here, Lakers are up 16-10. Luka is sitting down. Can't tell if it's a timeout or he's coming off the bench. Looks like he's in great shape. Might wanna tell Nico Harrison that. Let's see, share. You get a post show, you get a post show, and you get a post show. Right, so let's break it down, shall we? Before we do so, we'll have to crack our traditional ginger ale. There we go. We have our drink set for the night. Let's go ahead and break it down here. So, Raw came to us tonight from the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. Second week of shows in the Tennessee area. We got Memphis last week, Nashville this week. Also, the second straight week of a Jey Uso promo to open up the show. Obviously, last week they were coming off his big win at the Rumble, and you had the follow up to that this week. And for the second week in a row, you had the double pass of the Yeets and the songs. Say what you want about it. There are some people who cannot stand these Yeet segments. They cannot stand all of this. This is just a little too much for them. They don't like this in the wrestling or just don't believe in Jey Uso, whatever their reasons may be. With that said, you cannot deny that the live crowd is absolutely eating all of this up, and they are earning those 2 passes that they're getting from that song. It is not gonna last forever, absolutely not. Yeah, he could become a made guy, but it probably won't last forever. So, if you're tired of it now, eventually it'll go away. It'll die down. I don't think they're overdoing it. I don't think they're tempting fate with it. It's something that's gonna work. You know it's gonna happen. Until Jay loses all of his shine or they just completely burn that character into the ground, I don't care. They are going to the live crowds are going to pop for that entrance. So it's not something that I think you're taking a big risk by doing. Maybe you're alienating some grumpy podcasters at home, but other than that, I think you're doing just fine. But they didn't keep it going. You didn't have another segment. Had this have gone to a big talking segment, I think then you could run that risk of being repetitive. Then you could see you run the risk of doing the same thing over and over again. That didn't happen here. What happened here, you had Jay interrupting, excuse me, I should say Gunther interrupting Jay, beating him up, beating him down, getting separated, getting everyone out there. Agents are out there, everyone that can stop these guys from getting out there. And it's Gunther just beating him up and beating him down. Now, of course, Gunther said he was going to do such. He said that this Jay match wasn't worth it, doesn't excite him. He was gonna make Jay miserable until he chose someone else. He's basically, like, screaming at him, "Don't pick me," and he's beating this guy down and beating this guy down, beating this guy down. But Jay doesn't quite quit, doesn't quite give up. Eventually, from the beat down position, he gets on the mic and he does declare that his choice for WrestleMania will be to challenge Gunther. Not much of a surprise, but now it is official. And it essentially sets up a few different things. That one declaration ties up what the Royal Rumble winner is doing for WrestleMania, ties up what Gunther is doing for WrestleMania. I don't anticipate Gunther having a match at the Elimination Chamber. And it narrows down what Cody is doing. And I think we can make more educated guesses about what can happen in the Elimination Chamber. The men's Elimination Chamber is simply for Cody's title. So you can look at it like that. The Rumble was for Gunther's title. The men's Elimination Chamber is for Cody's title. And we'll talk about the build of that match a little later on. But you have a few things set in motion with that one declaration. And of course, because why wouldn't we? We already have a nice little graphic built. Look what we got here. So one half, in theory, more like one quarter of your WrestleMania main event looks like ta-da! There you go. Jay and Gunther, WrestleMania 41, April 19th, April 20th. Spoiler, this match will probably happen on the 19th. Jay versus Gunther. Essentially the third major match between the two of them. You had the IC match um, that Jay and Gunther had. You had the recent Saturday night's main event title match, and now you have this match. What do you guys think of this as the direction that they're going in, aside from the choice of Jay? I think if your premise is that Jay was a terrible choice, then it doesn't really matter who they pick as Jay's opponent. That seems to be what oh, I don't know what happened there. That seems to be the hill that you're gonna die on, if that's your take in the discourse. Now, if you are positive on Jay or a guy that wants to see it play out, tell me how you feel about it. I'm not saying that the positivity has to continue there. You can have a ton of problems of how this is playing out or even in the choice of opponent. When you're breaking down this matchup and if it makes sense and if it's the right thing to do, I don't think you can look at it in a vacuum. As I mentioned last week, part of the problem may be not necessarily that Jay won the Royal Rumble, it's that the title, the not so much the J let me reset everything I was saying. Maybe the title wasn't blah, blah, 3rd time is a sure, 3rd time is a charm. The problem, as I mentioned last week, wasn't necessarily that Jay won the Rumble, it was that it didn't really make a lot of sense to me for him or anyone to win the Rumble and not challenge for the main title, and I still think that holds true. However, something I will give them credit for is they have given a reason for this match to occur. Jey Uso getting to the top is not just about getting a title as a trinket, or it's not just about beating Cody. It has become specifically about beating Gunther. They've had to build a personal edge into this. And yes, there is the story about him winning the title, but you have to do something a little bit different. You can't just make that the story about him being the guy and seizing the opportunity. You've had that story in the past with Kofi Kingston. You've had that story in the past to a degree with guys like Daniel Bryan. And this is a version of that story. It's a well-worn story, a story that people, quite frankly, really, really enjoy and can get behind, but a story that doesn't always lead to long-term gain. With that said, if you're going to pivot off that main title, you have to have a reason for this to happen. They've got a reason. The reason is actually the champion does not respect the challenger, and he shouldn't respect the challenger. His character, shouldn't. He has beat him multiple times, but that is immaterial to the character of Jey Uso and to the fans of Jey Uso that really, really want to see him win that match. And so you have to create it where what this is about for Jey is about getting respect. Now, it's different from last year, where you can say that Cody's thing of finishing the story didn't make sense, and he was going in all these different directions because it was such a last minute pull. Now, this is a last minute pull too. You didn't really see Jay winning the Rumble, so you had to figure out what the rationale would be, but you don't really have to make a storyline rationale for why this would happen or why he would do this. Yes, you could consider maybe why he wouldn't go after Cody, but he's also aligned with Cody, so you can see that. And that Saturday night's main event loss was very intentional. Now, building up your big title contender by having him lose multiple times, not always the best course of action. I will have, however, say, to make a very tortured analogy, we just saw in sports someone or something lose multiple times and then finally get over the hump and people being excited in the loss. I think if we're being overly critical of Jay in this position because we're worried about what Jay is going to be like as champion, and that is still a concern. I would say though, it's a double-sided concern. Yes, you cannot want Jay in that position, but you gotta really ask yourself, what position is he being thrust into? What position is Gunther in? Does the company ride on Gunther's shoulder? The company made or broke with what Gunther does? No, not really. Now, is Jay gonna be a detriment to what they are doing? That remains to be seen. Other wrestlers in his position have been a detriment to their titles, and it's not always their fault. So if you have concerns about it, they are valid. But in terms of one micro storyline and how they're building it over the course of a couple of years, this is how you do it. Again, if you take issue or if there is issue to be taken, it is that this title is the secondary title. This is a great secondary title feud. Nothing wrong with that. It's not as patronizing as I'm making it sound, but it is not the main focus or the main event of the company. Michael notes, "I think he's ready for the Raw main event." And again, what is the Raw main event? Is the Raw main event also the Raw title scene? Jesse Hyde noticed that Cowboy James Storm was in attendance for Raw. Nashville, long time homie. Yeah, yeah, Nashville's a great wrestling city, right? Good to hear from you, Jesse. Good to hear from you, Michael. Good to get some new people in the chat that we haven't heard from a while. A little more people on YouTube watching tonight, which is great. Always have older people over from the Twitter accounts. That's awesome. That's a photo for later. We'll pull that photo up later. Spoiler on something else I was gonna show you a little bit later. Well, Michael, let's talk about that. On a Let me put up Michael's comment real quick. He says, "It depends on what night." I say night 1 main event. I think that's really the question because obviously the Gunther J match is not gonna main event night 2. And whatever happens night 2 is the WrestleMania main event, the true WrestleMania main event. That's not meant to diminish anyone. That's not to say that anyone's part, that they're not a main contributor, they're not having to sell the card. In fact, right now, I would say more so than almost any other era in WWE history, we're looking at an ensemble cast in the most positive of ways. So that doesn't diminish any of these things, but the night 1 main event is not the main event. Hell, Jey Uso's already main evented that main event, if that's what we're so damn worried about. Does he actually get the night 1 main event? I say no, and I'm gonna say no because I do not see a world where Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns are in different matches, and they do not headline a night of WrestleMania. I've got Jay versus Gunther, to be honest, probably opening night 1, and it'll be hot. It'll be big. It'll be okay. It's not the main event. It's not the closer, but it'll be fine. Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston. If anything, got a bigger pop than where it came in the card. And that's a little bit of a different story. That card was historically long. That card was longer than New York Transit could really handle. But it was almost benefited because it was the middle of the card. Let's face it, it's important, but it's not the most important thing that they're doing. Jesse's got Finn unleashing WWE's version of the Bullet Club. Maybe they should be firing guys that are associated with the club if he's going to have WWE's version. Catch up on some chats, and then we'll move on to some other stuff from Raw. E notes he's hoping New Day wins the tag titles at Mania. Fancy Johnson notes he misses Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Well, I mean, if you want to see him on conference calls, and they're on TV quite a bit, it's pretty accessible. And Jesse notes here on Super Bowl 59 weekend, we got WWE releases. Monday, we got AEW releases. Yeah. Is that the new fiscal year in wrestling? Is like Super Bowl when they determine their budget, and so they decide when they get rid of people? How did that happen in both companies where that both got readjusted? There has to be some sort of like accounting reason that went down like that. We'll talk about those AEW releases in a little bit. They were a little more significant, I think, than the WWE releases right now. After our opening segment, everything that happened in the world title scene, we got a promo from Rhea where Rhea noted that she is tired of everyone waiting on Charlotte and that Charlotte is just trying to hold on to her relevancy. Those are biting comments by Rhea Ripley, channeling the IWC on that one. But then that leads to Io Sky confronting Rhea and saying that she's gonna pay her back. She's not gonna forgive her for what happened last week. And that, of course, leads into the tag match that we noted earlier for between Dakota Kai and the fact let me clarify, the returning Dakota Kai with Io Sky taking on Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. First Dakota Kai match in quite a while. But she was not the focus of this night or this segment. This went through a couple of commercial breaks. This was a very long match. It was the first match of the night. Now, if you recall last week, Liv and Io had a really, really good match. Now, I'm not a guy that comes on a lot of podcasts or ever writes about wrestling in a way that's ever praised Liv Morgan. I count myself as somebody who kind of doesn't get whatever's going on with Liv Morgan. I don't get it. I don't think WWE should invest in much as much in her as they do. But she does have her fans, and she does get good reactions. I think just whenever they put the ball in her court, it doesn't usually go as well as you think it's going to go. With that said, her and Io had an absolute banger of a match last week. Like, it wasn't the most blow away theme, but good God, it kept everyone's attention. Half the crowd really, really invested in it. And you wondered how much they were going to keep that going tonight. We also got a War Raiders Creed Brothers promo, like right in the middle of this. And deep after that second commercial break, the crowd really, really popped for Io and Liv again. You basically got another part of that match again. And it was the second week in a row where it's like this long, kind of slow match with some big spots in between, and the crowd completely eating it all up. And then we got the thing that we all want to talk about. We got Bloody Liv. I don't think any of us were expecting Bloody Liv on this night. I'm going to show you Bloody Liv in just 1 second because she was bloody in a few different scenarios. But let's take a look at how she looked in the ring. Because she was, look at that. Yeah, she was wearing it for a second. The camera tried to cut away. For a second, you couldn't tell if it was blood or what was going on. And then you saw the ref taking out the gloves. And that's when you do. That's when you knew that we have ourselves a little bit of blood. You know, in modern WWE, especially on Raw, they're probably not using a blade, and ooh, that really hurt. And we've seen the scar a little bit later on. I'll show you the scar when we talk about that other segment. That really, really hurt. Really, really. And so, despite fighting through and playing through pain, it was not to be because Io won with an vicious moonsault. Fantastic match for Io. Not much of the return for Dakota Sky. That entire match was about Io. Io Sky has subtly been the MVP of Raw the last couple of weeks. It was like a couple years ago that she was in the title picture, and it seemed like she had her moment. She was gone, and unfortunately, in the women's division, when you're not in the main title scene, you seem to get lost in the shuffle. That's always a big risk. And she's rebounded nicely this year. It's stayed just relevant enough to the fact that she's become really a staple on that show, regardless of man or woman on that show. Her wrestling segments have become a cornerstone of that show this entire year. And the people, at least the people that are going to the shows, are absolutely into her. WWE has something with her. And again, and she's someone that I would have pegged as the expiration date for really being able to do something as expired. What are your thoughts on you? You know, overrating her based on a couple of matches, or are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Or are they just wanting her a lot and not really gonna go anywhere? Michael notes that Skeleton Anderson is out. Talkers mentioned the Bullet Club nowadays. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they care about that. We'll talk about the cuts later. Tony's gonna grab all of it probably, and then use them once. Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, and Hunter's beating him, you might as well just release everyone and bankrupt him. It's like the old notion with they supposedly helped Hogan negotiate his contract with WCW because they were so benevolent. Sure. Eagles finished the story. Yeah, they did. Did they finish the story or are they the Jey Uso? Two different stories there. Yeah, the Duke Hudson promo was pretty cool. When he promoted with himself. Jose 316 loved the women's match. Lives face, lives face. Bloody Mary did it better, says E. Jesse said, glad King Coda is back because Damage Control is starting to be WWE's version of Stardom's Queen's Question, which Io Sky founded, but PFC should have been WWE's version of Odatai, Hate. If I knew a lot more about Stardom, I would know what you were talking about. But take your word for it. Unintentionally, probably. You mean lives on down? I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, that's normally how she sounds on most of those promos, but despite her bloody face, and let me say that too. Everything I'm saying about Liv, she's been a part of these matches too, and she's okay, but she deserves a little bit of credit for that too. Guys, I'm gonna hit mute for 1 second. I gotta get not a smoke alarm going off. I get the little thing beeping because for whatever reason it thinks it's freezing in my room, even though I have the heater on. Unseasonably hot, and for some reason that sets off a freeze alarm. Don't know what's I didn't get it. It still went off. I might have to live. Nope. Nope. Can't wait for next week's segment. Fixing fire alarm. Rob. Anyway, what did you guys think? Now later on in the show, we'll just talk about this now. You had Io Sky being confronted by Rhea Ripley, who declared that she was truly sorry again for how everything has played out, and that she will be given Io Sky a title match the night after Elimination Chamber. So we have a big Io Sky match, not for WrestleMania, but for the night after the Elimination Chamber. So all those things I said about Io, is it building up to just a WrestleMania match? Or is that match the night after the Elimination Chamber just something to get you further to WrestleMania? Does someone who wins the Women's Chamber? What are we thinking about Rhea? Are we still thinking Rhea and Charlotte? Or after that promo on Friday night, are we thinking Tiffany and Charlotte. The Charlotte of it all. Mhm. Where does it go? Where does it go? I gotta tell you, despite all the praise that I have laid on Io Sky, I don't know what the hell Rhea Ripley's character is doing right now. She's subservient to Charlotte, she's apologizing to Io. She was a lot cooler a year ago. Now, I am glad that other women on the roster are stepping up, but I don't know what they've lost with Rhea Ripley now that they've disentangled her from the Judgment Day. She's just the sort of women's champion that's hanging out there. I just don't want Rhea apologizing to anyone, Michael. I guess that's Michael says the pre and post EO made sense. Apology for the DQ. I don't like that in that character. That's a preference of mine. Yeah, they have to be telling more of the story. There's a piece we're not seeing. You have to think because you have to think. Obviously, Rhea's going to have something really, really big to do at WrestleMania, but that it just really hasn't emerged yet. That women's chamber hasn't really taken shape into what it's truly going to be. We had some progress on it. We'll talk about that later, but the the fullness of the picture hasn't quite emerged yet. We have Gunther doing his speech, Triple H to the Tough Enough speech on the LFG crew. So it was good to keep the evil menacing Gunther on there. And then we did have another women's qualifying match. Our second match of the night was another women's match, and it was our Intercontinental Champion Lyra Valkyria taking on Bayley with Roxanne Perez at ringside. So Jose, and I'm referring to Rhea here, says they made her super babyface, and that kind of killed the feud. Agreed. We also had a George Kittle sighting right here in the Lyra match. Now, this match too was slow and had it was even slower, I would say, than the women's tag match that preceded it, but it was very long and very, very good. Not a lot of big spots. It was actually a lot of chain wrestling, a lot of grappling, a lot of them rolling around each other, and that's how this ended with a bit of a leverage pin for Bayley. Very good, very slow, well deserved. I don't know if it was "This is awesome" chant, but had the crowd into it. This was a crowd in Nashville that was okay with the slower paced wrestling. They weren't gonna turn on these matches until they were given that chance to breathe. Good for you, E. Good for you. I'm not gonna read the chat, I'll just put it up there. So, we're about an hour a little over an hour into the show, 2 matches, both on the women's division, and they'd both been solid and about the same tone, and again, I think we're starting to see a pattern of just this style of wrestling specific to Raw, and we have a bit of a formula now that we're just over a month into Raw being over on Netflix, which at least for my part tonight did not have all the glitches like we had last week. I did not book the main event as I did last week. In fact, I even went back to see something right before we got on air just to make sure. From there, we got a pent-up promo video. Says he has no fear, especially for cowards who attack him from behind, referring, of course, to Ludwig Kaiser, saying that he beat him in the ring, but that wasn't enough. And all these explosions went behind Penta, and he said that, Cierro Miedo did his whole thing with the hand down and all that. This freaking video was amazing. I don't know, um, what you guys thought of it, because it wasn't one of those, like, creepy kinda things where you're doing the Bray Wyatt thing or something like that. Like, this was not supernatural, it was just a really cool made video, with some cool graphics and really made Penta seem just awesome. Again, I don't know if you really are so into him, the feud with Ludwig Kaiser, at the moment, but that is the feud, that is the direction. That's the first real feud, from Penta, and he's coming for Kaiser. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little bit later, Austin. I think there's a real split there. There's a real decision for them to make. We are teased with AJ Styles' big return to Raw, which I don't know about you. I thought this was gonna be a match. I didn't know we were gonna get an AJ segment. I know they hadn't announced an opponent, but I just thought we were gonna get an AJ match. But he said he's having deja vu, and he's ready to get back to his stomping grounds 4 months ago. But then he had this career-altering injury that could have really been a big career ender for him. But he's got some things to do. First off, he has to remind the locker room just who he is. And at that point, he was interrupted by Dom and Carlito. The crowd not letting Dominic talk, giving him the New Day treatment. Eventually, they were able to get the words out and remind AJ that they run Raw. That AJ agreed with them that things had changed, but not necessarily them running Raw, but that where's everyone been? As for Finn, as for Priest, as for Rhea, Dom and Carlito did not produce any of these individuals. And one of the lines that Styles got out of there is that you'll always be Rey Mysterio's punk ass kid. They end up engaging in a little bit of a brawl. Carlito ends up being a phenomenal forearm. That was not a horrible segment, but again, I thought we were going to have a match, and that does seem to be. I don't know if that's the WrestleMania direction. I think you might want to give something else for those guys on that show, but I don't know. Not the worst thing in the world. Not the worst use of either guy. Dom can certainly go in the ring when he's presented in that way. And we know AJ can go for a freaking broomstick, but he's getting up there in age. There's plenty of good matches for AJ to have if he's going to stay healthy. There's actually some fresh matchups to have, and Dominic would not be a waste of his time. And I think we could really get some good old man, young guy stuff out of a feud between the two of them. Michael Michael said Styles and Dom. I'm actually here for that feud. And Jose says he thought a retirement announcement was coming. I really wasn't getting the retirement vibes. Who was it? Thank goodness it was no salmon jacket moment. I mean, Nashville would be a pretty good candidate for him to make that claim, although they were so recently in Georgia. I feel like that'd be weird to do it, but you never know. You never know. We got a recap of the Jay Gunther segment right then, and then they actually made it official of Jay and Gunther, which led into a Seth Rollins promo over, I guess, not exactly on the Oakland position, but right around there. AJ was wrestling in TNA while Dom was young. Yeah, AJ was wrestling in TNA while the custody of Dom was being fought over at SummerSlam '05. AJ's wrestling in triple threats against Samoa Joe and Christopher Daniels. Yeah, yep. Prayers up, B. Prayers up for sure. Seth Rollins gives just sort of the typical promo, says all eyes are on him now. Refers to the title pictures coming together. Finn interrupts him, says all eyes are on him because we're witnessing his downfall. Finn was very wutted in this promo. Wutted, yeeted. I don't think that's going to happen. Really don't. Seth says he's got unfinished business with Punk and unfinished business with Cody, but Finn is in the way next week. And he won't be standing in the way after next week because that is one of the last two spots in the chamber to be determined next week between Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. Two guys whose characters are in distraught all the time these days. Two very angry guys on the show. They're resetting all their classic feuds, all the hits that they've had together. I definitely see that playing out because I think this is basically going to serve as the match between the two of them. There really wasn't much to that promo, I'll be honest. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it just kind of was what it was. And it sets up next week. That's what matters. This promo doesn't matter. I don't think we have to spend a lot of time with it, other than again of all the main event players, everything that's fallen into place. Seth Rollins feels so out of place with all those guys. I don't care if he was the linchpin to last year's WrestleMania. That was a great story, but in right now, 2-day WWE, they got a lot of work to do to actually make him matter in these stories. He's got too much of a Dolph Ziggler stink on him right now. I have no idea. I'll throw that out to you guys. Who do you guys think is what's the other qualifier? Got a couple of weeks. I assume it's something on SmackDown, but I'm not sure. And we'll look at the full graphic in a minute. Backstage, Adam Pearce first tells AJ, "Hey, take it easy. You just got back," but he ends up giving him the match against Dom. So we get that next week. Again, how long that program's gonna go, who knows? But we get that match next week. Jose's predicting Finn and Dom. I mean, yeah. I think it's more likely than Dom and AJ, although I think all are on the table. Hell, at this point, maybe with Rhea, who knows? Who knows? But the backstage segments in WWE happen so people can get interrupted and run into each other. And we have a stare down. Not just any stare down. We had a stare down between AJ Styles and a cowboy hat wearing Braun Breaker. Let me see if I can show you guys. So this is the image that they lingered on for a really, really long time. Which I mean, Braun Breaker in a cowboy hat, I can live with. And in fact, if you want to project things down the road, Braun Breaker versus AJ Styles seems like a much better option than AJ Styles versus Dominic Mysterio. The first comment, and this is on the X post that WWE put up, was Breaker's had like 17 stare downs at this point. Just give us his next feud already. You know, Michael, they should build the match as that. Being that AJ already called Dom just Ray's punk ass kid. Can Scott Steiner be like, or can Braun just be with the dog face gremlins, ugly ass, really athletic kid? I don't know. Gotta say though, Braun in that hat looks intimidating. Like, you think he looks like an idiot? Well, I mean, I don't want to make that many statements about people in a cowboy hat, but I think there's some intimidation there. I don't think he looks stupid. I think like The Rock looked stupid when he was wearing the cowboy hat because he was wearing it as like he was wearing it to look stupid. I think if you saw Braun wearing that hat, I don't know what you would assume, but I'd be intimidated for sure. Look at that thing. Jeez. So could either one of these guys though play like in Walker Texas Ranger? I feel like Braun would be maybe the partner, or is he the deputy, or is he the villain? Maybe AJ can be like Chuck Norris's sidekick. AJ kind of looks like Chuck Norris, and at this point, he's like as old as Chuck Norris would have been, what, mid '90s. Obviously, if that's our WrestleMania match, that is a hell of a nice event, and I think that's a really good use of Braun. AJ's not winning at all, but I'll take that over than Braun versus Sheamus number 999,000 for Sheamus's never-ending quest to win that title. Again, doesn't mean it's not gonna happen. Doesn't mean it would be a bad thing if Sheamus ever did it. I kinda like him, having that trinket removed, but, or not achieving that. We had a rare Raw tag title match between American Made and the War Raiders. Did you know the War Raiders are the champs? I forget on a weekly basis that they are the champs, but they are the champs, and they put on a championship performance here. This started out kind of slow as well, but eventually it fit into tonight's collage of just really, really entertaining long matches. But the result here was that the War Raiders gained via DQ, which was unfortunate. But the wrestling was so good. Again, not a definitive finish. And I think of the 2 tag divisions, the Raw tag division is so far below the SmackDown division. But this was a nice little showcase for the War Raiders. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I'm still not the biggest supporters of it. Jose says he's happy they jumped the mic and stuff. Um, obviously, these guys aren't done and they're gonna go forward. Um, backstage, we had the Judgment Day looking really beat up. They're laying out. Liv is bloody. They're just all worn out. And we have a nice little pep talk from Finn. Finn gives him a big lecture, but Dom ain't having none. I think what mattered from that though was what I'm going to show you right now. It was clearly this neutral. I mean, that's what it was all about. And I think this was actually, in all seriousness, something that was beneficial to have in the show on Netflix. Because I don't know that we would have got that big old gash on television, which I'm maybe shouldn't even be showing on YouTube. It's brutal, but look at that thing. And if you can see it like on your own end, or you can check it out on X, or take a screenshot as I did. Liv's face was sliced open, and it's just a hell of a visual. Hell of a visual. The Judgment Day, though, they're on fumes. And now you have JD eliminated from the mix, as said pointed out. He noted Finn forgot Don runs cell block in the Judgment Day. Very true. Very, very true. We're looking like he's got the jailhouse persona right now. Yeah, Michael, it definitely has run its course, and it feels like after this year's WrestleMania, they have to just let it cease. I know they made the mention of new members, so maybe it'll evolve into something else. But whatever the current form is, um, I think we've gotten Priest and Dom and Rhea out of it. Liv, I think, has been enhanced by it. It served its purpose. I mean, what is it? It's still going to be a vehicle for Carlito. Obviously, that's very, very important. But aside from that, all right. Moving on with the rest of the show. CM Punk is making his way out to the ring, and we have a little section of him giving the lecture on LFG. They're really promoting that show pretty heavily. Obviously, you have Bubba the Undertaker and Mickey James really, really associated with that show, or on the show. Not associated with it, they're on it. And it's like about this Punk promo. Punk says he would have told you with all the confidence in the world 2 weeks ago that he was going to win the Royal Rumble. But, he's moved on, said he's mad at Jay, and says, in fact, he's going to do what he said he was going to do. He's going to end up stabbing Cody in the front. And he says, because 2 guys have qualified for the chamber, referring to him and Drew, not referring to, let me repeat this, not referring to Cena, noting that Cena did not earn his way in, simply declared his way in. And actually, he gets it. Cena has earned it, but says that Cena's going to pay because Punk has earned it, and he's gonna beat him up and beat him down. Really had some venom for Cena in his promo. Then he called out his old nemesis Drew. Talking about what he did to him in Hell in a Cell. What do you think you're going to do to you in the Elimination Chamber, and then he calls out his shot for Mania, gives his impassioned plea, gives his side, really his campaign, to be part of the main event of WrestleMania and take on Cody. And then Logan Paul walks out. Of course, Logan Paul, just a couple of weeks ago, eliminated CM Punk from the Royal Rumble. We're thinking so much about the Jey Uso win, talked so much about the Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins stuff. We kind of forget that actually it was CM Punk that was eliminated by Logan Paul. Now, are they setting up for a one-on-one match between the two? I do not think so. No, I do not think so. Are they going to have a lot of interaction in this Elimination Chamber? Yes. Is CM Punk kind of a fulcrum of the Elimination Chamber? He's sort of individually feuding with every member of this? Yes. Absolutely. 316. Agree with that. I think it's like tough enough, probably, where it's, I don't know, 70-30. So before we move on to the main event, let's talk about what really went down in the promo. Is CM Punk called out everyone that's associated with the match at the time, but had the most venom for John Cena. Obviously, Punk and Cena have a heck of a history. I would say each one of them would qualify as the other's greatest rival within the confines of WWE. And their paths and their stories will always be intertwined. And they've had great matches. We always like to talk about the Money in the Bank 2011, but there's also the the match that they had the next year with CM Punk as a heel, and there's the match they had the match they had in 2013 on Raw, leading into WrestleMania 29. All of that was really, really good stuff. And despite, I think, being presented as two different sides of the art of the wrestling arguments back in the odds of the teens, they've now settled into this role as the two legendary elder statesmen. And the two people who you're most associated with the real main event of WrestleMania, the Cody Rhodes match at this point. And all the reporting seems to indicate that there is a triple threat in the works with Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk. And as far as John Cena goes, he would be facing Cody Rhodes for the title in the main event. If you're WWE, it makes sense to put John Cena in his last WrestleMania in the main event. You don't have to explain to anyone why that would be a smart strategy. With that said, they are teasing another match. Before the Royal Rumble, they made a tease for Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. Tonight, they made a little bit of a tease for Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. And if I had to wager a guess, I would say the Elimination Chamber is going to come down to CM Punk and John Cena. Those will be the final two in the chamber to determine who is going to face Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania and be the real main event of WrestleMania. If CM Punk does not win the chamber, which I don't think a lot of people are predicting that he will, it's likely I think he will fall back into that triple threat with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. And let's be clear, that is not a bad consolation prize at all. But as Jose mentions, if Punk gets to the main event, not for a title, it will not feel like he did it. Absolutely. It will feel like something that was almost contractually given to him and not really any part of any natural storyline. If he were to be in the title picture at this year's WrestleMania, maybe you can make the argument that it is slightly forced, but there'd be no issues with putting him in that position where based on where he is on the card, the reactions he is getting, and his performances in the ring. With that said, Cody versus Cena is a huge match, a huge stage. And does the quality of your WrestleMania main event really matter? Oh, we have such a big company with such a big card. I don't know. Hard to say. But something I think WWE needs to maybe be careful with, if they're not gonna give the fans Cody versus Punk, they better make sure everyone is gonna be okay with what we get with Cena versus Cody. We're not seeing Cena a whole lot right now. and based on some of his recent performances, that might be a good because as I believe it was Kevin Nash pointed out, or who was it that pointed they yeah, Kevin, she was Diesel. He knew Cena wasn't winning the Rumble because he didn't get a tan. The old Eric Bischoff Starrcade 1998 logic. Well, yeah, Cena looked like crap in that match, both physically and because he didn't get a tan. And Cena's getting great reactions, obviously, whenever he is out there. At this point, Cena's not gonna get that mixed reaction that he got before. People are just happy to see Cena, and people know that we're on the end of seeing Cena. Additionally, WWE has created this quest for Cena to get his 7th title and pass Ric Flair. So there is a ton on the line for this match, for John Cena, for the legacy, for WWE, the overall storytelling. I will say this though, if the fans, at least the fans that are going to the shows, feel like they are really in to CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes, and we get Cena versus Cody, a feud that's going to be have to be carried mostly by Cody Rhodes by himself, which that isn't shade on Cody Rhodes, but are they going to be able to pull that off? That is a tall task to handle. And after a gluttonous 2 nights of WrestleMania, which I'm sure the fans will be super fed everything they could ever want on a wrestling show, are we really going to accept Cody Rhodes versus a lumbering John Cena after a weekend full of wrestling where we are absolutely exhausted? I'm sure it's not going to matter. It's going to be on the marquee, but they might run out of a little bit of goodwill if they go ahead and go forward with what is the reported main event. Just something to chew on. So you're noting about Heel Cody. I think Heel Cody's coming relatively soon. I don't know. I don't know if WrestleMania is the place for it, and I don't know if again Cena is the place for it. That's something else we got to consider. No matter who Cody goes against, his staying power as a babyface, I think, is really going to be tested. His metal. If you had to pick between the two matches, though, what do you want? Cody versus Punk or Cody versus Cena? Speaking of not being able to see Cena, did you guys see this amazing piece of merch? Check this out, guys. So, Ringside Collectibles is selling invisible John Cena figures. Check those out. They're translucent. You can't see him. Very, very on brand currently because right now Cena's biggest character on the show, one of the biggest characters, and we don't ever see him. Similar to someone else years ago that he used to cut promos on. Oh, look at him. His time is up. His time is now, but he has disappeared. No, that's a cool figure. Ironic or not, that's an awesome figure. I'm not a figure guy. Nick Bockwinkel type hill. I assume you're Nick Bockwinkel heel. Eddie, I assume you're referring to Cody on that one, not Cena. That's awesome. That is pretty So does Vacant have an action figure yet? I need a Vacant to face this guy. See if he can face the Invisible Man. Great stuff. Great stuff. All right, and there is one more match on Raw to talk about, and that would be our main event, which would be Rey Mysterio and Logan Paul. This is a pretty good main event. I know. I think the Logan Paul fatigue is hitting a new height. He's always going to get heel heat, and that's just part of who he is as a character. So I think that's separate from what I'm talking about here. I think wrestling fans are done being impressed with him, despite the fact that he still is, I think, very good in how he presents himself within pro wrestling. I just think the wrestling fans are kind of over it, but those reactions are still insane. I mean, as CM Punk noted, he's going to Dominic Mysterio react, and him and Ray have a lot of history together, so they have quite a bit of chemistry. But this ended up resulting in Logan Paul winning with the pulverizer move, that flipping like DDT move, getting the win over Rey Mysterio, qualifying for the Chamber. So right now we have 4 spots in the Chamber: CM Punk, John Cena, Drew McIntyre, and Logan Paul. 4 out of the 6, as we mentioned early in the show, Seth Rollins and Finn Balor will be going at it next week on Raw to fill one of those spots. Not sure who's going to fill the 5th spot, the 6th spot, but as it is, Logan Paul gets that spot. Rey Mysterio takes the loss. Rey Mysterio is laid out, obviously, after taking the loss at the end. And we have the New Day coming out and attacking Mysterio. And then the bug comes and we go off the air. The Tommaso Ciampa bug comes on. Last we see, the New Day is about to beat up Mysterio off the air. Of course, the last couple of weeks, you had Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods losing to members of the New Day. You had a tag match, and now we are here. And so I think whatever Rey Mysterio's got going on in the near future definitely contains the New Day, but Logan Paul is moving on to the Chamber. If the wrestling, Michael said the main event on next week, the next week's show is going to be great. If the wrestling the last couple of weeks has been into any indication, and with the time that they're giving these main events that start basically at 10 o'clock to go to 10:30, I have no doubt, despite my misgivings right now on both those characters, but I feel like just characters that are just kind of in a bit of a cold spot. I think that main event should be amazing. Cornette, like that's a bit of an upset. Wonder what his take is on that. I don't listen to Cornette's podcast right now. His stuff isn't falling into the YouTube algorithm. As soon as I listen to one clip, though, that stuff will take over. Lakers have a lead at halftime, by the way. Don't know how many points Luka has. Chad Gable's still gonna try to. Yeah, Chad Gable wasn't there this week. He's still on his luchador quest. There's a lot of division amongst the yeeters and the non-yeeters and the chatters. So I have my Gen Z correspondent, the child labor producer, asking if I'm discovering figures for the first time. Yeah, basically. Which I mean, seeing this kid's great. He should be asleep right now. I don't know. Child labor producer, do we have vacant? Send that to me. Oh, 72-47 at halftime. Apparently, the Utah Jazz are not putting up resistance to Luka and LeBron. Who would have thought? And that was Monday Night Raw. A concise show. We have 4 matches. All of them were very good, and we had a ton of progress towards both WrestleMania and Elimination Chamber. That's why I thought this was such a concise, tight show. Again, the viewership keeps going down according to some of the metrics that Netflix is releasing. What that matters anymore, I don't know. But the quality of the show, in my opinion, just kind of keeps going up every week on Raw. We're getting progression. Now, you're always gonna well, traditionally you would get better shows going into the bigger times of the year. What Raw still looks like coming out of WrestleMania on Netflix, we'll see. That'll be a whole other test. But going into WrestleMania, the Raw side of things looks good. SmackDown has good things brewing, but that 3-hour format right now is killing that show in a way that I didn't anticipate. Well, not that I didn't anticipate, but SmackDown was the A show while it was the Bloodline show, and now that the Bloodline isn't the main focus of that show, and it's 3 hours, everything has just gone on to Raw. I thought you were talking about the Atlanta Hawks there or something, Maddie. I didn't snap. Congratulations to your Eagles. Good God, that was a beat. I've been trying to do a wrestling analogy, the Eagles finished the story. Is it Jey Uso finally beating Gunther? I don't know what's I was thinking maybe Wardlow squashing MJF, but that ended up, a little bit different. What's an example in wrestling of the well-oiled machine finally beating the fat champ? I know there's one. I can't think of a specific one that really fits Eagles and Chiefs. Um, I'm glad Ian and Maddie could unite there. The it's amazing. The Chiefs have the ability to make the Eagles like babyface for once. Philadelphia has never they may feel like we got underdog mentality, but the Philadelphia Eagles never really feel like underdogs to the rest of the country. But last night it just felt like the entire world needed that blowout. Remind me of that Seattle Denver blowout where like the world just needed to see Peyton Manning lose. The world needed to see that happen to Mahomes last night. OJ is beating them in general, Maddie, for sure. Yeah, Mahomes is getting killed out there. Yeah. So apparently, what you got to do is just um, have Steve Spagnuolo on the field. Doesn't matter who he's coaching for, just have him on the field, and the quarterback will get killed in the Super Bowl as long as Tom Brady's there and all set. At least they got Jalen Hurts as their MVP. Now you had Nick Foles last time. Let's talk about some of these AEW releases really quickly. You had thought to be departing from the company. I'm not sure exactly where we are with Aleister Black, but we can say, he ain't going to be around. Miro and Ricky Starks. Now, none of these really come as a surprise, but I think there's some consequence on a lot of these guys. When it comes to Aleister Black, he's a guy that has already been with WWE, and I actually think he would fit in very, very well in current WWE. This secondary title. There's a few guys that are kind of similar to him. All these guys that are feuding and losing to Braun Breaker. Aleister Black would blend in very well with that crew. And we know that Triple H has a particular liking to him. And there's no reason to think that if he were to come back, why wouldn't he? His wife works with the company. I think he would fit in very, very well. And another guy that got released, Miro, I have no interest in seeing him go back to the WWE right now. Yes, the WWE that Rusev left many years ago was a different place, but Miro needs to rebuild his stock. I think he needs to do it away from the power structure. Miro is just perennially unhappy. Despite having such a start in AEW, the man just seems miserable. and I think he needs a break. He needs to cool off. He hasn't been on TV for a long time, so you can say he had a break, but I think he needs a certain fresh and Ricky Starks, let's face it, he's coming in. Hell, he was at WrestleMania last year, just couldn't get on the screen because of where he worked. I'm pretty sure Ricky Starks is coming in. Hell, Ricky Starks will be main eventing something against another former AEW guy just to piss off Tony Khan. Those are significant names that are finally being let go. Obviously, Ricky Starks has been dying and dying to get out of that contract and doing everything he can to be free from AEW, and it looks like he's finally getting his way. I I think the potential for him in WWE can be pretty high, especially being that he has what it takes in terms of cutting promos and friends in high places. The only things you ever really need to do. I'm not sure on Josh Alexander. You would think he would fit in pretty well in NXT, but I think there's options for him, quite a bit, like, everywhere. Despite the fact that there's 2 big companies right now, there's still other places to work. It's like JBL said, it's a pretty good time to be outside WWE. I thought that time might have dried up, post-pandemic, but it seems like it's kind of coming back to life. Wrestling in general is hot. WWE is hot. Um, AEW is not as hot as it used to be, but they're still in a very visible place. Impact is having one of its better runs. GCW is doing very well. American wrestling is in pretty good condition. You know what's not in good condition? These freaking names. So WWE released about 12 talent over the weekend. Not a whole lot of surprises. I'd say Sonya Deville was the biggest amongst them, but not a lot of guys that had been doing a whole lot on TV. But you get rid of people because you bring in new talent. There's new people coming from Impact. We saw Jordan Grace coming in. But we got to do something. We have to address these names. So I've got them on a Google Doc here, and let's go through some of these names and see maybe if there's anywhere to put these guys or these ladies, or if we can just simply make sense of it. All right. So we have in no particular these are the names. These are stars. Someone here is going to be a champion. Harley Riggin, Mariah Bennett, Braxton Cole, Mason Holiday, Summer Sorrell, Hayes Jasmine, Tate Wilder, Jax Presley, Osiris Griffin, Darko Knox, Thrill London, Chantel Monroe. Do they just go into ChatGPT and say, just give me the most generic wrestling? The hell are these names? Harley Riggins, Jax Presley. Does Jax Presley feud with Tatum Paxley? Mason with a Y. Mason Holiday. Draco Knox definitely someone that's going to get cut. Thrill London. Yeah, that's a cool name. Braxton Cole sounds like an announcer. It's like Byron Saxton plus Michael Cole. Hayes Jameson, is that who's that going to be? And is Tate Wilder going to be Jordan? Who's a future world champion here? That'll be the question. Between Harley Riggins, Arya Bennett, Braxton Cole, Mason Holiday, Summer Sorrell, Hayes Jasmine, Tate Wilder, Jax Presley, Orissa's Griffin, Darko Knox, Thrill London, Chantel Moore. Your first future world champion will be Draco Knox. Mark it down. You better come back and that in, like, 5 years. I think, I think I found who Draco not. I mean, Husky Harrison, I still think Tatum Paxley is the worst name ever. I just I can't with that name. Festus is okay compared it's the generic, like, free form character names or that that they give these guys that I just can't. I can't. But I think I know who's gonna be the future champ. In fact, I don't even think it's that hard of a decision. Future champ's gonna be this guy. Draco Knox. Guys, I've been going for an hour and 30 minutes. I gotta get up and go to work tomorrow. I gotta see if the Utah Jazz can close this 30-point gap that Luka and LeBron have put on them. I gotta see if the Dallas Mavericks really know something that we all don't know. I gotta come up with some great takes on Cody and Cena and Jey Uso and CM Punk. So I think I will see you guys next Monday after Raw. But go ahead and keep it right here on the Brass Ring media, social medias, all of them, particularly mine, right down there, Rob MV. Find me on X and Blue Sky. Check out Brass Ring Media on Substack, on Patreon. Go ahead and check us out streaming every Monday night on the RVD Twitter account, 1TS Twitter account, and on the One True Sport YouTube channel. And check out all our great content over there. I will talk to all of you guys next week. Peace.